Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. Good to have you with us today. Matt and Patrick here. Patrick Coolican for the Minnesota Reformer joining us in the 4 o'clock hour. Patrick, how are we today?
Not doing too bad. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I am, I've been paying attention. First of all, it's been a spectacular day. I am one of those weird guys that my favorite temperature is like 67, 68 degrees and sunny. That's what it's got out right now. I love that. I just love it cool. You're in Chicago. You're right by the lake. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I just love that feeling. I'm the kind of person that it gets to be like 75. I'm hot, man. Which is interesting because apparently I've decided to go to Death Valley at the hottest time of the year later on this year. So, Death Valley. Oh, okay. I realize my mistake now.
But it's a dry heat.
Yeah,
Matt.
it is. It is. And, so I'll be parched. You'll find me in an archaeological dig in a few thousand years. That will be lovely. I did have to spend a lot of time looking at the Cohen testimony. Now they're cross-examining him, and there's just an ugliness to all this. And I said to myself, I could go into this because yesterday I started with this. I'm going to get through a lot of it today because there were one or two pretty good-sized bombshells today that I want to touch on. But I decided, I'm going to share a personal story with you because I've had last week, Patrick, my son graduated University of Minnesota, a degree in mathematics. So smart Steve must have got it from me. Hey. No, not really. I don't think that was the case. And like I said, I married up. Needless to say, I've had a lot of people talk to me about, what were some of the better stories you had about your son growing up. And I have one. Now it's a little sportsy, and it's you'll get the point of it. And it's kind of one of those things where I always smile and I feel warm when I say this story. My son loved baseball and still does love baseball. He grew up. I love baseball. I grew up in New England in the 1970s. So Yaz is my favorite. Carl Yastrzemski was always my favorite player for the Boston Red Sox. Also loved Jim Rice. He was fantastic too. Big fans of those guys. And those were the heroes I had growing up in baseball. My son grew up as well, loving baseball, played baseball, was very good at baseball, has a shockingly good power hitter in baseball, and played pretty much all the way through high school. He dealt with a lot of adults that had issues masterfully. Grown adults who were taking out their own personal vendettas against a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid that, he dealt with those slings and arrows pretty well. He never really, I think from a young age, he understood that he probably could have played college ball, but at a cost. He wouldn't have gone to the University of Minnesota. He would have gone to probably a secondary school on a, probably Division II, playing baseball. Might not be the college program that he wanted. And he kind of understood that he wanted to kind of do certain things and go to a certain school. And so he had no delusions of trying to prolong his baseball career, but he did play up and through the summer, especially of 2020, where he graduated in the post-pandemic era. He played fall ball in late 2019. His fall ball coach did tell him he could make easily good. I could get you onto a AA team, AAA for sure, as far as Division I or Division II or Division III in college. And he said, no, I'm going to go to the University of Minnesota School of Science and Engineering. And so he went and did that. But he still played. And he played in a semi-competitive league his summer year, because reminder, everything was canceled in the first part of that year. And so they started doing baseball again, and they'd have distancing and stuff like that. And he couldn't pass it up, and so he went out and played. He was really good. His last summer, he was really good. And we were playing a game out at a field called Big Willow, which is on the west side of the city of Minneapolis, in the town of Minnetonka. And he was having just a spectacular game. Just a spectacular game. I mean, he already had homered once. He doubled. He had like 6 RBIs. He pitched 2 innings of scoreless baseball. I think he faced the minimum of 6. He looked really good. He just had a nice double play. And so it was at his last at bat. And he's just looking. I mean, he knows he could strike out. He knows he could walk. He knows he could do anything. But he's had a banner day. And they were playing a team from a town called Champlin. And he steps into the batter box, loosey-goosey, just having a good old time. What happens, happens. I've already had a good day. The pitch came at his head pretty solidly. It was intentional. Guy was trying to drill him right in the ear. He dove to the deck and barely avoided it as the pitcher kind of gave a sneer, a little payback for the damage he'd done that day. And I remember my son getting up, and he dusted himself off, and he sprayed the dust off his pants, and he sprayed the dust off his shirt, and he looked at the pitcher's mound, at the pitcher, and just kind of in a very inquisitive, like, what did you just do? He put his head back down again, brushed off his chest. And if you've ever seen the movie Mission Impossible with Henry Cavill, when he's in the bathroom and he basically reloads his hands in a fist fight, that was Charlie. He picks up the bat, and I leaned to my wife and I said, "Oh my God, he's angry. He's really, really angry." And he was focused. And all of a sudden, it was a very, very different hitter. And he gets up there, and he waits for the pitch. Now, the next pitch was a pretty good pitch. It had a little heat on it. The crack of that ball off that bat is something I will not forget. I still can hear that today. The trajectory of that ball as well, the angle it went at, it wasn't like anything I'd seen at a high school game, period. Any high school game. It cleared the fully grown trees halfway down the right field line by about 10 feet, bounced past the entrance road into the park, into the Minnetonka City Maintenance Facilities parking lot. I have a measuring app on my phone. I measured it out at 460 feet. He just clocked that. Foul. Furthest pitch he ever hit. The furthest pitch I've ever seen any high school player hit. I mean, that's a major league home run plus some. That's upper deck at most stadiums. He just clobbered it. The message had been sent. To watch the pitcher, who was clearly feeling a touch cocky just the previous pitch, realizing he had to throw him another one because that was foul, waited for the ball to come back to him, shoulders slumped, kind of regretting some of his recent life choices. Charlie was there. Throw me another one. Just throw me another one. Letting him know what was about to happen was about to happen. Didn't get the next one nearly as much. That one only went about 390. cleared dead center by about 20 feet over the center field fence and bounced into the street for his second home run of the game. He was not a kid who taunted. He was not a kid who bragged. He didn't do that. He flipped that bat like the cockiest Major League Baseball player. Stomped on first, stomped on second, stomped on third, halfway to home, looking at the pitcher saying, "You happy you did that?" Stomped on home, high-fived his players, and sat down. I don't think that pitcher ever recovered from that. It was the most fun I've ever had at any sporting event ever, watching my son do that. He had, like he said, just amazing power. But it was the mentality he had that he knew that his days of playing were pretty much over. Doesn't mean he wouldn't get into a pickup game or something like that, but any kind of organized, he wasn't going to try out for, as a walk-on at the University of Minnesota. He wasn't going to, try to hold on. He had some friends that did try to hold on and transfer school to school and try to get on one team and, hold on with their the white knuckles that they can to try to stay relevant in playing. But he knew that was a dead end for him. And he himself, I didn't have to say this to him, he himself knew. But he decided he wanted to end his career with some fireworks. And that was, as much, like I said, as much fun as I've ever had watching any sporting event in my life. Because it just was, amazing what he could do. I am still somewhat flummoxed by the idea my son, my baby boy, is graduated college. I am constantly this last week, and going through memory after memory of him at every age, from little kid to 7 to 10 to 12 in band and stuff like that. He was a very good trumpet player too. He could probably gone to college for trumpet. But that one is one that I won't forget that. I just won't. All right. Good, happy stuff done. I'm going to get to Cohen next. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
But I give all my money.
It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. Nice to have you with us today. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Let's roll through there's a lot here. We're going to be talking about this for a while. Trump came rolling with some heavy support today. Well, he doesn't really need much. Well, never mind. Republican elected officials are coming this week. I love the one description of it. It's basically potential VP candidates basically coming into the courtroom just to stare at the judge with evil eyes. I'm watching you. Trump joined today by House Speaker Mike Johnson, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. I'm going to presume to be confused with the bailiff half the time. Also, Representative Byron Donalds, Corey Mills of Florida, Vivek Ramaswamy was one of Trump's primary rivals this year. Both Donalds and Ramaswamy were long shot hopefuls to be Trump's running mate as well. They're lining up because he needs his support politicians, his emotional support politicians to basically be there for him. It's like a little child who brings up all their stuffed buddies to be with them when it's a tough time. Only his stuffed buddies look like Vivek Ramaswamy. So yeah, kind of a dark side, more of a grim fairy tale. I'd go with that maybe. Just rolling through the coverage of it. Have to admit, surprised that Speaker Johnson wants to be in the cheated on your wife with a porn star club. This is courtesy of Liz Cheney, who just took a massive swipe at Johnson. I guess he's not that concerned with teaching morality to our young people after all. Damn! You guys made a mistake going against her. Cohen's now describing meeting with Trump in the Oval Office in February 2017. He says that Trump asked him if he needed money, and that he said no, he did not need any extra. Then he said Trump asked him to deal with Allen, meaning Weisselberg, who had arranged a repayment plan for the hush money. So this is yesterday, if you remember, we got up to the point where he had paid the hush money. He'd basically taken a home equity loan to pay off Stormy Daniels, who was looking to get paid back. We're still at the point where the prosecution is questioning Cohen as of this morning. It's now changed. The defense is going after him, but not nearly as well as they think. But needless to say, this was basically, we got to the point of paying off Stormy Daniels. Now we get to the cover up. And that was a big part of this morning with one or two fairly large, like what moments. Trump, he also said Cohen testified that he'd received a check for both January and February. Now prosecutors have posted pictures of Cohen visiting the White House at the time. Jurors have also already seen this picture, but now they know its importance. At the meeting, Trump showed direct knowledge of the repayment plan per Cohen's testimony just now. Cohen is now explicitly testifying that the invoices he was sending, which he has sought to tie to Trump, were false documents. He's going over the monthly invoices he created, which described him as having been paid for services rendered, and testifying that they were false records. He stresses they aren't valid legal fees and reimbursement. So he's basically admitting we were sending these notifications. They were fake. Cohen confirms that in response to this false invoices, he received 11 checks in 2017, totaling a total of $420,000. Cohen is going through check stubs for the first two checks and saying the descriptions on them were false. Cohen also says Eric Trump, who is sitting in the courthouse, "Hi, Dad!" And Allen Weisselberg signed the first two from the former president's revocable trust account. And so wait a minute, how is Eric not on trial here too? At some point, it switched to Trump's personal account. Cohen is now testifying about checks Trump started signing himself from his personal accounts. The juror seems to be listening, with some following with documents shown in the screens in front of him. Cohen is being asked about the invoices one by one. Is that a false record? He is asked over and over. Yes, ma'am. He typically responds. Speaking to reporters outside the courthouse, they will take a little break from the trial. Mike Johnson, once again, pro guy having affair on wife with porn star. Just accused, and Christian, and Christian, I almost forgot that last part. He seems to have as well. He just accused prosecutors of advancing a sham trial against one president to provoke cover for another. Wait a minute, you were in the trial for what, 45 minutes? And you came down with this deduction? It's almost like you went in there planning on just saying whatever you wanted to say. And it didn't really matter what the courtroom was going to go through. It's a sham trial. Kind of like you're a sham speaker. By the way, that doesn't come from 45 minutes. That comes from watching you do all the stuff you're doing because you kind of are bad at that. His comments came a week after Johns put down an ouster attempt by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, who had criticized the speaker for not doing enough to defend Trump. Now, he came with knee pads today. Johnson has said, I came here again today on my own to support President Trump because I'm one of hundreds of millions of people and one citizen who's deeply concerned about this. Hundreds of millions? I think you're kind of over-exaggerating. I think his total vote count last election was like 72 million. So, tens of millions, sure. Hundreds of millions? Well, I'm going to count Russia, I guess. Vlad commanding you to be concerned about Donald. It's worth noting that Trump's minutes after the vote had actually taken place had encouraged House Republicans on social media to not oust Johnson, at least not yet. We're not in a position of voting on a motion to vacate, his post said. At some point, we might be, very well be, but now is not the time. So basically, this is Johnson going, please, sir, don't hurt me. It's amazing how much Trump controls the Republican Party now. Like I said, we got the RNC. He wants tribute from all the candidates. He's going out and shaking down the major donors. He has complete control. Cohen is now being asked about his House testimony in connection to the Russia investigation, going ahead towards questioning about his lying to Congress about discussions about plans to build Trump Tower in Moscow. Cohen had said before the trial he did it to protect Trump, and he's poised to talk about it here. Cohen notes that the Trump organization was paying for his lawyers and that he was a part of a joint defense agreement. Cohen testifies he felt he needed the protection of the sitting president at the time. Trump looks directly at Cohen on the witness stand as Cohen says he lied for Trump out of loyalty in order to protect him. Now, how'd that go for you? Oh, that's right, horribly. Cohen has reached the part of his story where the news of the payment to Stormy Daniels was broken into the public sphere, and that was the beginning of the end of his relationship between Trump and Cohen. No, those lovebirds. He's testifying about the statement by Stormy Daniels in which she denied having had sexual and or a romantic affair with Trump. Her lawyer at the time, Keith Davidson, testified in his statement that it was technically true because they didn't have a full affair. It was just, and I don't think it was really, intercourse. I don't know. It really sounds like it was more of a one-way street there. It really does. The petulant man-child. I'm here for myself. All right, great. Mike Johnson knows that. Sorry. Come here, Mike. Take a break. Come on back more. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the afternoons here on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. So we're at the point now where the payment is basically the public has become aware of Stormy Daniels, and this is kind of where the whole thing is. And if you pay attention to the trial at all, what you're seeing is basically that Trump basically depended on Cohen to kill this story. When it did come on out, even though Cohen wasn't responsible for it, that was when Trump turned on him. But he did string him out for a while here. We'll get to that here. Cohen is now testifying about the statement by Stormy Daniels, which he denied having an affair. They just called Daniels' statement false because, and once again, his lawyer is saying, well, didn't have an affair. They just was a liaison, I guess you could say. Cohen said that he made sure to tell Trump that he got the denial from Daniels to get credit and that it was continuing to ensure that he was protected. He wanted Trump to know what he said and stayed loyal. As Cohen continued to testify about Daniels' statement to the press at the time of the hush money payment became public knowledge, he has admitted to lying a number of times. He just said he knew one of the statements was a lie because he helped craft it. This could be helpful in defense cross-examine starts, but of course Cohen has long admitted he was lying for Trump. As Cohen continued his denial tour in regards to the hush money, we are seeing that he was texted by Jay Sekulow. That's right, one of the corporate attorneys from The Simpsons. If you ever see this guy, he is the spitting image of the corporate attorney guy from The Simpsons. The lawyer for Trump, the text says, client says, thanks for what you do, said Sekulow. Cohen leaves no doubt in his testimony that client in the text refers to Trump, thanking Cohen for the denials. Cohen testified a few minutes before that he'd share the misleading statement about reimbursements with Sekulow. Now, here's where you get the first, okay, because once again, we're talking about the Trump campaign, Cohen basically heading the Stormy Daniels story off at the pass, basically helping Trump get elected in 2016. But now we're with Trump in the White House. And the mentality kind of has been, well, this was still kind of a campaign thing, and this was stuff that Trump was doing outside of the realm. It becomes interesting when all of a sudden, like Jay Sekulow is mentioned, because once again, that was Trump's personal attorney in the White House. So that's actually a White House official. But here's where my first my eyebrows really raised for the first time. Cohen says he told David Pecker, former publisher of the National Enquirer, that had been told by a federal investigation Cohen faced would be taken care of by Jeff Sessions, the then Attorney General. So once again, now we're crossing that line into abuse of power of the White House because, reminder, the Attorney General is not supposed to be doing the bidding of the president's personal details. They represent the executive branch, not, hey, Stormy, do you like mushrooms? Correction. Sorry. Correction. Stormy, do you like button mushrooms? Thanks for the variety here. We got the right variety of mushroom we're talking about here. Petites. Anyway. Sorry. Cohen testified that Trump told him that Sessions would take care of the problem. That's an interesting statement. The president of the United States saying the attorney general was going to help get Cohen off the hook for his problems. Cohen is now describing the FBI's raid on his Park Avenue hotel room in April 2018. This is, to a point, this reminds me of the end of the TV show Veep, where Trump is sitting there, Micah, I love you. Don't worry. I'm never going to turn my back on you. And as soon as Michael's gone, it's like, let's get him. It's pointed fingers at him. He's the bad guy. That's what it kind of feels like. You ever watch Veep? That was a fantastic show. Cohen is now describing the FBI's raid on his Park Avenue hotel room. In April of 2018, Cohen testifies that Trump said, don't worry, I'm the president of the United States. There's nothing here. Everything's going to be okay. Stay tough. You're going to be okay. He says it was the last time they spoke directly. At this point, the narrative of 2018, Cohen was looking for reassurances that Trump was going to take care of him. He would soon lose that sense of security as the Trump organization started to balking and is paying some of Cohen's legal bills. His then attorney, so this was his first attorney that wasn't, it's kind of hard to guess. Robert Costello was his attorney, and he wasn't necessarily with the Trump team, but he was close buddies with Giuliani, who at this point was now officially a member of the Trump White House legal team. So, and it wasn't quite clear if he actually got retained as his lawyer. So there's a murkiness there. Costello, his then lawyer, offered to act as a back channel between Cohen and Trump. Cohen says in the middle of his channel was Rudy Giuliani. Cohen testified that Costello told him not to reach out to Trump directly. So while Costello and Giuliani informed a link between Trump and Cohen, they also acted as a buffer, which may have grated on Cohen, particularly given that he used to report the Trump directly and loved doing so. Here's my second eyebrow raise of the day. You know what this kind of sounds a little bit like? Sounds a little bit like what was Roger Stone doing with all the militia groups on January 6th? Because, once again, that was a close ally of Donald Trump, who seemed to be the point person for the organization of the militia groups for the January 6th attack. And what you're hearing from Cohen is kind of the same thing, is that they created these channels of communication behind the scenes that allowed them to communicate with each other kind of off the record. And when I read that, the first thing I said, you wonder how in the world, when people say Roger Stone acted independent or there was clearly there was. And once again, Giuliani his fingerprints are all over January 6th, and particularly as kind of the point person of directing things. So they created two-tiered level of approach, which gave Trump clearly some level of security from this. Emails we're seeing from Costello go a long way towards supporting Cohen's description of the meeting. Cohen had said that Costello recommended he hire him as a lawyer because of his relationship with Rudy Giuliani would help him maintain access to Trump. In one email, Costello tells Cohen that his relationship with Giuliani could be useful to him. In another, he talks about back channel for communication. And the third one, a not so subtle message: sleep well tonight, you have friends in high places. So this is, once again, these are, corroborating evidence here. Cohen is testifying with emails on the screen that Robert Costello, his new lawyer, was continuing a fierce pressure campaign to keep Cohen loyal to Trump. Cohen says he understood Costello, to be telling him not to cooperate with law enforcement in the wake of the FBI raid. Cohen talked about the message was stay in the fold, don't flip, don't speak. It's easy to forget that former president of the United States is on trial. This type of language is common in trials of mobsters. Cohen was in the midst of testimony about weighing whether to retain loyalty to Trump, painting it as a very difficult decision, and he considered whether he would be loyal to his family, his country, or to Trump. As he was speaking, Vivek Ramaswamy and a number of other politicians here supporting Trump walked back into the room. And what was remarkable is that it didn't stumble up Cohen, but pretty much everyone in the courtroom, it kind of disrupted a lot of other people. And there's a lot of people who think that was by design, that Vivek Ramaswamy and this crew was to come on in here and basically try to disrupt Cohen. Now, it didn't so much disrupt Cohen, and because it didn't, the judge, I don't think, cracked down on it, but it clearly looks somewhat coordinated. But Cohen mostly was unfazed. He kept testifying. Merchant didn't take care of what took place, but he might have if Cohen had been disruptive. We almost never see a display like that during the proceedings. Several officials marching in during testimony. It was disruptive in the room, if not for the witness. Susan Hoffinger, the prosecutor, did just ask Cohen why he paid the money to Stormy Daniels. Cohen said he did so to influence the election and that he did so to Trump's direction. This is a summary of the key things that may signal the direct examination is coming to an end soon. Cohen is now reading aloud the tweets Trump put out when Cohen pleaded guilty, saying that he felt very badly for Paul Manafort and his wonderful family and praising Manafort for refusing to break. Such respect for a brave man. It is absolutely remarkable that the sitting president was tweeting these things. We also see Trump's tweets attacking Cohen. He says that if anyone was looking for a good lawyer, he doesn't recommend Cohen. He contrasts Cohen with Manafort, a loyal ally, and criticizes Cohen for breaking. Cohen, seeing those tweets, says he caused a lot of angst and anxiety. He says he understood he was being told not to cooperate. So basically what this is, and once again, this is at this point, Trump is the sitting president, and he's praising people that did not flip on him, and he's attacking people that did. Pure mobster stuff, man. Cohen is now talking about the 2019 testimony before the House Representatives, one hearing which was televised, extremely dramatic. During the hearing, he sealed his split with Trump, calling him a racist, a con man who is unfit for office. The prosecutor is now detailing the lawsuit that Trump filed against Michael Cohen in Florida well after the presidency. Ultimately, Trump decided not to be deposed in the case, was dismissed, but that suit has widely been seen as an attempt at intimidation. Among the things Cohen claimed under oath was that then president back in 2019 coordinated with then Attorney General Bill Barr to grant immunity to longtime Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg to testify in Cohen's case. So here's the third eyebrow raise. Now you have Bill Barr basically being recruited by Trump to give Weisselberg immunity to go after Cohen. It was such an unusual case in every way, but then to be bombarded with all this information, I mean, this is such a public world, and thinking about the fact that this witness is saying that the Attorney General of the United States of America was in cahoots with the President of the United States and his attorneys, I think it's just the confirmation we were all looking for. Blanche, this is the defense attorney. He indicated during a sidebar the defense's only witness, if they were to call one, would be an expert, and that would not be until Monday. Recall that one of Blanche's goals is to stretch out the trial. Blanche also said that no decision has been made on whether Trump will take the stand for his defense. You have got to be crazy. His lawyers would be insane to allow Donald Trump to go on that stand. That guy can't keep his mind focused. You would open things up so much for the prosecution. I would be stunned if they even entertained this idea at this point. They can't be thinking about putting him up there. No way. So there's where we're at. And now we get to the defense cross-examining Cohen, which just wrapped up. And the main thing here is you just have to know is that it kind of goes where it is they're basically saying Cohen's bad guy, Cohen's got a vendetta, Cohen blah, 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 Cohen blah, blah, blah. it was where you're going to go. There were two objections quickly sustained. Justin Merchant has already asked the lawyers to approach Merchant, whispering to Todd Blanche at his desk during a sidebar, shaking his head and speaking to Blanche, looking him dead in the eyes. Blanche, frowning, returns to the lectern. Very, very tense from here out of the gate. He basically tried to basically trip up Cohen with the idea that tried to trip up Cohen by basically saying, well, you didn't really, work well with the prosecutor's office. How are we supposed to imagine you actually remember all these things? Well, he does have 2 books on it. I give you an idea. And like I said, there was a lot of this, like trying to gotcha moments with him, and I don't think any of them hit. This is from Jonah Bromwich over the Times. During the cross-examination of Stormy Daniels, the tension in the courtroom was palatable, but today it's noticeably lower, which is surprising given how hotly anticipated this confrontation was. Blanche is questioning Cohen about the specifics of prison sentence, and Cohen looks puzzled, certainly not relaxed, but composed at the moment. The jurors look as they're having a hard time keeping up. One just yawned. Others are looking around the room. The testimony, which is now focused on Cohen's initial supervised release from prison, has slowed to a crawl, and it's not entirely clear where Blanche is going with his questions. It really is. It just seems to be that he was trying to. I think it's the epitome of trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, he's trying to. They know this. I think the prosecution has done a very good job of basically getting the fact that Cohen's unlikable and he's been convicted and he's got issues, and they're trying to basically, once they've already muddied that field, they're trying to make mud again, and it's already there, and it just doesn't seem to be sticking. Doesn't mean that it isn't having some impact, but it doesn't look that bad for the prosecution. We'll take a break. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
I have this thing where I get older, but just never wiser. Midnight's become
It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday, 952-946-6205. Good week coming up here. I think we got Stein tomorrow. We're going to have Schechter on Thursday, and might be Dr. Joe coming in on Friday. So hopefully, as the week rolls on, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Mike Lindell has chimed in. My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell was unexpectedly upset after House Speaker Mike Johnson spoke at Donald Trump's hush money trial in New York on Tuesday. During remarks in Manhattan, Johnson declared that Trump was innocent of these charges, which included falsifying business records to hide hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. That, however, did not satisfy Lindell when he spoke to podcaster Steve Bannon moments later. The Pillow executive was upset because Johnson used notes while speaking. He also questioned Johnson's Christianity. Well, here's Mike Johnson, Lindell marked, glancing at a note card. This is really bad to Donald Trump. Oh, wait a minute. It says here I'm a Christian. Just hold on. Let me look at my notes. This guy has no passion for our country, he said of Johnson. He has no passion of our great real president. This guy has got to go. I'm a little confused by this. Lindell insisted that it was disgusting for Johnson to use notes as a speaking aid. I'll tell you what's going on in our country, he opined. Donald Trump is a uniter to all the people. All the people are getting united because of you know what. Not all of us. I mean, I'm not. Any of you guys are united? I'm not united. I'm not, no. The people have seen through the garbage of like Speaker Johnson up there saying, this was really bad, Lindell added. Really? You had to read that off your notes? Speaker Johnson to tell you how bad that is up there? Pathetic. Pathetic. All right, so, okay, first of all, it's laughable, as Liz Cheney pointed out earlier, that the president of the United States is being charged in a conspiracy to cover up hush money payments to a porn star he slept with after his child was born with his third wife, and you're accusing him of being a bad Christian because he didn't. What? Yeah, I am not too. No. By the way, I thought this was kind of interesting. Axios put out a story today. And I kind of, once again, New York Times comes out with the story saying, oh boy, Biden's in trouble. But once again, they've every poll that has been put out since Roe v. Wade was overturned has been wildly wrong. And you know why? Because they keep using the model and the template for polling that was designed back in the day when people had a landline phone with a cord. And by their own admission, when you look at the numbers and the breakdown of these polls, the Generation Z and millennials voted at the same rates as every other group in 2020, and yet they still revert back to historical rates and say they're clearly not going to show up again. I mean, it's a downplaying of this. They're not actually being able to reach out to Generation Z and millennials because they don't answer their cell phones. And from what I've seen, whenever any of these polling places tries to do like an Instagram poll, the conservatives run out there and very quickly try to flood the polls. That's what they do. So Axios puts out the story is, why isn't Joe Biden angrier at these polls? Well, I can make this other argument for you, Axios. Why are the Republicans, who clearly by your polls are saying are way far ahead, why are they acting like they're behind? It's because I think that the polling that happens at campaign levels is showing a very different story, and that I am seeing Republicans that are panicked about where things are going, and I'm seeing, especially from the Democratic National Committee, I am seeing a confidence there, which is telling me they're seeing numbers which actually are countering this. And it's not like every poll shows Biden losing. No, there are some polls here. What was it, the Siena poll? Which, a PBS Marist poll had showed him ahead. They basically, polling errors in recent years prove that polling isn't destiny. Democrats did better than expected in many 2022 midterm contests, and the aspects of Trump candidacy include, and they say, and both of them, by the way, Trump and Biden did better than expectations in 2020, although Biden did a lot better than there. However it feels about the public polls, Biden is clearly well briefed on them and often goes deep into the crosstabs. We run strongest among likely voters in the polling data, Biden told wealthy donors in Medina on Saturday, while the national polls basically have us among registered voters up by 4. Among likely voters, we're up by more in the last. And by the way, and this is not just Biden saying this is going well. The Republicans, there is definitely a dark cloud within the inner circles of the Republican Party. And I'm not saying it's panic yet, but it's at the same time, they're clearly concerned. There's a lot of money that is currently going out there to try to discourage Generation Z and millennials from voting. Because, and as I pointed out yesterday, the message should be very clear from the Democrats. You should be getting up on TikTok and on Instagram and all these social media pages that they use. And the message is simple. Republicans are hoping you're stupid enough to vote against your rights. Republicans are hoping you're stupid enough to vote against your best interests. Republicans are hoping you're stupid enough to vote to kill democracy. That's all you have to say, because that, once again, Generation Z is very motivated. Millennials are tired of all this too. They've watched as years and years have happened and things have continued to go bad. And, the Republican Party keeps saying we're going to try to change things, and they stop change from happening. So they're tired. They overwhelmingly, millennials and Generation Z overwhelmingly favor Democrats, Republicans. I think when you look at this story from Axios and they say, why is Biden not concerned? I think because he's seeing the fact that down deep inside, these numbers are, the numbers, the real internal numbers are showing that he's doing better. And as a matter of fact, he's even pointing towards these own polls and saying, hey, you're the ones that are insisting on taking an attitude and an angle that says we're doing badly. Everything I'm seeing right now, myself and the numbers and the limited analytics I've done, but everything there tells me as well, the Democrats are still looking pretty darn strong. The media is trying to convince us otherwise. Chicago, have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next. Hour 2 of the show here on on your Tuesday. Matt and Patrick here today, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Patrick Coolican going to be joining us here in just a little bit. But Patrick, do you go to Red Lobster?
I have not been in a few years.
It has been a while. Dozens of Red Lobsters across America are now on the chopping block. Or are they in the lobster pot?
They have been removed from the tank.
They're being served with a side of butter. Restaurant liquidator, that's got to be it. That's got to be an ulcer-inducing job. Tag EX Brands announced this week it would be auctioning off the equipment of over 50 Red Lobster locations that were recently closed as part of the seafood chain's footprint rationalization. I mean, if they got the Cheddar Bay biscuits, I'll take a few of those, man. Those are tasty.
That was what I said to someone last night was, I can get the biscuits in the freezer. They taste basically the same, so I have no need to go to a Red Lobster.
The locations span across more than 20 states, cutting off the Red Lobster's presence in cities like Denver, San Antonio, Indianapolis, and Sacramento. Because when I think of seafood, I always think of Denver, San Antonio, Indianapolis, and Sacramento. Yeah. It's unclear if Red Lobster plans to shutter any additional restaurants in the near future. The Orlando, Florida-based company did not immediately respond to the Associated Press request for comment. On the Red Lobster's website, a handful of impacted locations were listed as temporarily closed and unavailable. Red Lobster has been struggling for some time with lease and labor costs piling up in recent years. The chain is now reportedly considering filing for bankruptcy, a potential Chapter 11 filing that could help Red Lobster exit from some of its long-term contracts and renegotiate some of its leases. Unnamed sources familiar with the matter I told Bloomberg. But then there's the problem of the endless shrimp. You hear about this?
I did hear about this.
The endless shrimp. Last year, Red Lobster significantly expanded its iconic all-you-can-eat shrimp deal, and customer demand overwhelmed what the chain could afford, which also reportedly contributed to the millions in losses. What are you doing, man? People were camping out there. They'd get there at 11 when they opened, and they wouldn't leave until 8 on the same endless shrimp, dude. And no, you can't get that to go. I try to ask. They won't let you do that. God. You're too popular for your own good. Hey, nice of the NBA to have a 9:30 local time. Hey, kids, who doesn't want to watch the game tonight? I still haven't seen anything that tells me that the T-Wolves are going to bounce back. Have you?
Well, after games 3 and 4, maybe the kids will want to be in.
Yeah, it's an early night, kids. We'll see you in the morning. One last thing here before I get into Coolican, and I want to just touch on this because, as you know, I have still been dealing with the flag people who are cray-cray, I mean nutsoid about this flag. And you know, they basically, they're just, it's the Somali flag. It doesn't even look anything like the Somali flag. But yet, if you've got racist goggles on, it does to you, apparently. You know, it's these people that are just so upset because they have been told by the right to hate it. And so they can't help themselves. That's who they are. I have been calling out bigots a lot on my social media, on Twitter. Basically, the rest of the social media pages, there's maybe like one person. On Twitter, it's well over 200. I'm dead serious. I've blocked like 200 people in the last 5 days because you don't matter to me. And you sit there and say, you're afraid of debate. No, you don't want to debate. You just want to yell your opinion at people. And trust me, on any given day, on a planet of 8 billion people, you rank somewhere at best 4 to 5 billion. I don't need you in my life. So I block you because you're not worth anything to me. I know that might be hard to hear, but it's just a factual statement. You mean nothing to me. So if you take that as some sort of grand victory because Maddie blocked me, well, great. I'm glad I made your day. But I'm calling him out because it's one of two things. Once again, the original Minnesota state flag was designed on a print which was intentionally about manifest destiny, running Native Americans off the land so white people could take over. They bragged about it when they designed that flag. That had to go. A racist image is not appropriate for the flag of Minnesota. The other side of that, if you sit there and say, it's the Somali flag, you're not saying that because you like the Somali flag, although someone did point out the Micronesia flag is somewhat similar to the Somali flag, and yet no one's complaining about the Micronesian flag. You're saying it in a negative context, which means you're bringing up in bigoted ways. So, no, I don't have any regrets or resentments about calling we got to keep the old flag because I think the racist imagery is fine, bigot. If you're sitting there saying, Somali, Mogadishu West, bigot, you're just a bigot. I had one guy who I was kind of stunned came after me, but he came after me in a way you're seeing conservatives return to, because this is a way they used to come at people and they're returning to it. And the mentality is this, Matt, if you are an advocate for Native American issues, which I am, I feel Native Americans have been screwed. I think that they deserve a hell of a lot. And I am more than happy for them to sit down and tell the American government what they would like in return for 500 years of being treated like crap. 100%. And it's not my place to dictate that because I'm a big white guy, okay? Scottish by ancestry. For me to weigh in on this or try to be there, the guidepost, the weather vane, would be wildly irresponsible. It's just not my place. Talk to the Native Americans. They will gladly answer your questions for you. You should not, if you're a white person, stop trying to speak for any minority group, especially the Native Americans. Do I support the Native Americans? 1,000%. And when they say to me, hey, this flag's offensive, it's not my place to get in their way. I'm on board with it. Absolutely. But then the argument is, well, Matt, do you have a house? If you haven't handed your house over to the Native Americans, then you don't have any right to criticize this. That somehow I have to basically give up everything and take a stance they themselves would never take. Because let's face it, say I did do that. They would never once say, boy, oh boy, no, I guess you have a point. No, they'd laugh and ridicule. Why would you be so stupid to do that? That would be what their argument would be. It's not about any legitimate point. It's basically about saying, shut up, don't talk about Native American issues, and I'm going to basically try to find a way to shame you into saying you shouldn't say anything about it, which is even more racist if you think about it. Basically telling people you can't even bring up the racism of the old flag. I've seen this, by the way, as well. You're seeing how many immigrants have you brought into your house and are feeding on a daily basis? Unless you're feeding 20 a day, don't talk to me about what we should be doing. Like that's some sort of false equivocation. Once again, it's something the individual is making up falsely, kind of in a bigoted and racist way, to basically shut you up because they don't want to hear the fact that the flag was racist or that we have a problem. We should try to be helping out the immigrants, especially since we employ a lot of them. That sort of thing. Now, once again, I am not going to try to speak for the Native Americans. I got in touch with Robert Pilot. I relayed some information to him. I hope that that gets cleared up. And my mentality is, once again, because I'm deeply uncomfortable trying to be that person that lead, because I shouldn't be. The Native American people, they can tell you exactly what they want, the injustice, why something is wrong. They will gladly stand up and tell you that and gladly do it. You should go talk to them. I'm 100% with them, but they sure as heck don't need me to relay that. And white America needs to understand you need to bring the Native American story, heritage, and injustice into our society so we can deal with these problems. Not just sort of say, until you do this, don't you dare bring up any kind of injustice. You're just a hack. And and once again, when they say that, that's not about me. That's about them trying to get you to stop talking about something by trying to be this faux, huge moron clever, as I like to call it, which is pretty standard for conservatives. Needless to say, talk to the Native Americans. They'll explain their thoughts on the flag. They'll explain their thoughts on how we can make things right after 500 years of injustice. We can talk about, they've always been right about water issues. Maybe we should listen to them. They care about the water and the earth. Heaven forbid we don't go with what they're saying. I'm on board with them. But one final thing to all people out there. If you come and criticize me on my page, you are coming to my page. Me posting something on social media is not trying to get a rise out of you, is not forcing you to make a comment. You chose to come to my page. Don't feel like I owe you anything because you mean nothing to me. And I'm dead serious, trolls. You mean nothing to me. You aren't even close to 4 billion on a daily basis. Slightly closer to 5 billion. And if you're that far down the list, the fact that I'm even, I'm taking the time to, block you, you should take that as a freaking compliment. Because that's time I can't get back. You want to be stupid about things, fine. You can go be stupid. Just don't be stupid out in public and expect people to not smack you around. And if you have questions about how the Native Americans feel, as opposed to putting up false standards, which basically is designed to prevent people from criticizing the injustice the Native Americans have experienced, go talk to them. 952-946-6205. I mean, I just don't know how else to explain it. Okay, Patrick Coolican, Minnesota Reformer, is joining us. He's going to talk to Brett about a few things. First of all, it's I think they're going to get to Aaron Brown's call on lobbying, but the main thing is talking about the end of session, the ERA bill. And although I don't think it was officially a filibuster, there was a long debate on it that's kind of tied that up a little bit. They'll talk more about that. It's Patrick Coolican with Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson with you here on a Tuesday afternoon. And if you take a look at the calendar, we are getting towards the stretch run of the Minnesota legislative session, as the last day of session is coming up on May 20th. Although I should point out on May 20th, they're not allowed to pass any bills. So they only have just a few days left to get things done. And we thought, well, who better to talk about the end of the legislative session than Patrick Coolican, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer, a great resource for the latest in Minnesota news and politics over at minnesotareformer.com, as we will indeed be talking about the end of session, as well as some other news as well that they've been working on, and possibly also highlighting a column from Aaron Brown that is talking about the influence of lobbyists. So lots to get to today. And Patrick, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's start off talking about what's happening with the end of session. And I want to talk about some of these GOP legislatures GOP filibusters, I should say, that we've been seeing over the past couple of days at the legislature. And let's start off talking about the Equal Rights Amendment, because DFLers would like to see that amendment put up to a vote in 2026, where Minnesota would be one of the states that passed the ERA. So I'm curious, where does this stand right now? Because as I understand it, the GOP launched quite a filibuster against this earlier this week, with mainly contending that they want a religious exemption into the ERA. So I'm curious where we're at right now with the ERA at the legislature.
So the Minnesota House was supposed to take it up last night, and they ran out of time because of a Republican, I don't know if we want to call it a filibuster, but prolonged debate, let's put it that way, on a different bill that was seeking to ban what we've come to call junk fees. And the problem is that for Democrats, that the number of legislative days is now dwindling. The session is over, as you mentioned, on the 20th, but due to a constitutional wrinkle, they're not allowed to actually pass any bills on the 20th itself. So Sunday is the last day, and there's also a limit on the number of days that they can actually pass stuff off the floor. So it's looking a little tight, and I don't know exactly where it is on their list of priorities, but as for now, we're in a bit of a holding pattern on the Minnesota ERA.
Well, let's talk about this junk fee bills that, of course, Republicans also wanted some, as we'll say, extended debate on. As I understand it, they spent at least about 7 hours basically filibustering this consumer protection bill that would ban junk fees. Because, of course, as I saw on Twitter, people famously love junk fees, so this makes a ton of political sense to try to delay this bill. And that's despite the fact that I believe there was a handful of GOP senators who support this junk fee bill. So what exactly were their main contentions on this? Because, as I was mentioning, this seems like it would be a pretty popular bill since nobody likes junk fees whatsoever.
Yeah, the idea is to bring some transparency to pricing. We've seen an increasing number of businesses that will kind of give you a surprise fee. I think in this case, Republicans are trying to stand up for their usual allies in the business community who don't want to deal with another mandate. But as you say, these kinds of fees are deeply unpopular. I think we feel better that when we're going to purchase something, a product or service, and we know exactly what it costs. So their objections are especially to, I think, the idea that that the government fees are not included in this, and for instance, sales tax, and so that's the point they're making about hypocrisy. But I think that what they're really doing is they're just trying to slow down the entire legislative process and hoping that they can run out the clock. And even though we have not seen quite as much of this in the Senate, they've been Republican Senate has been running their own delay operation with respect to DFL Senator Nicole Mitchell, who of course was arrested a few weeks ago on a burglary charge, and so they've kind of kicked up quite a bit of dust with that whenever they can, and that has also delayed things.
So I want to talk about this idea and how the GOP is able to delay some of these bills, because as I understand it, this isn't quite like at the federal level where you need a supermajority to close debate, but what exact methods are the Republicans using to delay bills? Is this just essentially just extending debate for as long as they can, knowing that eventually, if the majority party wants, they can get this bill passed? Is that essentially what's happening with these delays that they're putting on?
Yeah, well, like I said, there's a certain number of legislative days. So if you can run the clock, you can reduce the number of bills they can put on the floor. And so there's all kinds of ways. If you can watch the House session, there are 201 House members. There's 134 House members, and roughly half of them almost are Republicans. So not a problem for each and every one of them to get up. They can ask the bill author to yield to questions, and you can really stretch out a debate for a very long time. And ordinarily, like last year, it didn't really matter that much. I mean, they still had to finish on time, but the bigger issue this year is those number of legislative days are dwindling, in addition to the Sunday midnight deadline. So it's going to be close. The only good thing for Democrats in this situation is they have such an unambitious set of goals they're trying to accomplish. Last year was, of course, a huge legislative year, and this year they came in with at least leadership came in with a slender set of goals, and so they should be able to make it happen. Particularly the public works bill, the infrastructure bill, which is known around the Capitol as the bonding bill. They do it usually in the even years, and that requires a supermajority. They're going to need Republican votes. And so this is another way that Republicans can win leverage, because part of it, an agreement on the bonding bill, on the infrastructure bill, could be let's not drag out debate here on these other bills, and try to be decent about all this, and let us get past what we're trying to get past here with our majorities. So yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of gamesmanship and theatrics here at the end.
Let's talk a little bit more about that bonding bill, because as I understand it right now, it looks like both sides between the Republicans and Democrats are moving at least a little bit closer. From what I saw, it looked like Minnesota Senate Republican leader Mark Johnson said that they've exchanged some ideas and are up to about $890 million. The DFLers are looking for an amount more in the 900. So I'm curious how this kind of compares to previous years' bonding bills, kind of where the money would go, and whether kind of going back to what I was saying, whether this is a significant investment compared to what we've had last year in the bonding bill. Only bring that up because we had, as you alluded to, such a momentous session last year when it, of course, wasn't a bonding bill. So I'm just curious where the bonding bill kind of stands right now and what would be in it, since we do have both sides inching towards an agreement here in the final days of the session.
Yeah, it seems like they're on a path to an agreement. I expect it'll be smaller, a little less ambitious than the last two major bonding bills. There was one last year, and I believe but previous to that, there hadn't been one since I think the fall of 2020. And so I expect it to be a little bit smaller, and also they're going to have to include a number of projects that are in Republican districts in order to get those votes, and those are going to be the requirements in order to get that bonding package through. So I expect that will be also down to the wire because everybody's going to use the clock in negotiations. Republicans certainly have big needs in their districts, and so they have reason to vote on this package, but they also are trying to use this small bit of leverage that they have. It's just about the only leverage they have in the entire legislative session to really get as much as they can, and so they'll be using the clock, knowing that come 11:59 on Sunday, that's it. So it should be some interesting high wire negotiations here.
Well, this is, of course, the last time we're going to be chatting until the end of session, since obviously the next time we do our interview, it's going to be May 21st, which means the session will be over. So I'm curious, outside of what we kind of talked about for the past few minutes, what else should we be keeping an eye on at the legislature during these final few days?
Well, there is a supplemental budget package. They do pass the major 2-year budget last year, but there's some supplemental requests. And so that's certainly something to watch, and a fair amount of policy. But like I said, the legislative leaders went into the session with a very slender set of goals, and of course, leadership has changed. Erin Murphy is a relatively new majority leader in the Senate. She had that role in the House about a decade ago, but she replaced Senator Carrie Dietzick, who got a cancer diagnosis or some bad news on her cancer diagnosis earlier, and so you just don't have the huge to-do list like they had last year, and so it'll be interesting. And then the other issue, of course, is that it's election year. So I think that has also tamped down some expectations. I think that they want to focus on allowing the administration, the Walz administration, to get the programs they passed last year into shape and go into the election with a set of accomplishments that's mostly from last year. There's a tax bill they're going to decide on that it could include spreading out the child tax credit so people could claim it every month instead of all at once. There's certainly, I think backers of sports gambling would like to see that pass, but I think that the chances of that are just dwindling by the day. There's a fix for paid family and medical leave. There's some technical bills that they want to pass, make some changes there. We're following that closely. that could lead to a small tax increase to pay for paid leave. There's a number of other outstanding bills. But again, a pretty unambitious session. I think that the leadership, their feeling was there's only so much that we can force onto the bureaucracy and state government. There's only so much change that they can take, and last year was a lot. And so they want to give them a bit of a breather, and then also give the voters a bit of a chance to kind of absorb all of last year's accomplishments.
You talked a bit about the fix that the legislature might need to make for that paid family leave bill. Let's talk a little bit more about that. If the legislature, let's say, doesn't pass that fix to the paid family medical leave bill, would that impact anything with that entire program, or is that something that they could put off until, well, maybe the next session?
Yeah, I mean, they can. It doesn't take effect until January 2026. So there's certainly time. The problem is that you don't know who's going to be in control of the legislature next year. There's going to be a special election, likely at least one, maybe two on the Senate side, because you have a member, Kelly Morrison, who's likely going to be in the U.S. Congress. So there'll be a special election to replace her. That's a West Metro district, probably pretty safe for Democrats, but you never know. And then, of course, Nicole Mitchell now, if she were to resign, and I expect and hope she would, as soon as the session's over, that sets up another special election. Then you've got the House, which currently is, I think, 70-64, so that's close. So they don't want to take any chances. I think that they want the tax to be slightly higher, and if they don't, then what they want is for it to be essentially 11 weeks instead of 12 paid time off, unless you can show you don't have paid time off for your whatever company or whoever your employer is. I don't think that's ideal. So they're looking to make a slightly higher payroll tax, and I think they need to get that done. Because they don't want to mess around with that if Republicans control one or both chambers next year.
And final question for you. This really doesn't have anything to do with the legislative session, but I want your opinion on this because Donald Trump is set to come to Minneapolis this weekend, the Twin Cities area, May 17th. And I am curious, do you think any of the Republican leaders around Minnesota, talking about not just members of the legislature, but even members of Congress or other big GOP donors or people involved with the party, you think many are going to end up showing up at that Donald Trump rally, or trying to kind of keep their distance from this entire thing?
Well, certainly the congressional delegation they've all endorsed him. I think that, I can see Tom Emmer I don't know what the congressional calendar is like, but Tom Emmer trying to get back into good graces with the president. And I mean, he's the leader of the party. He's the nominee. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of prominent Republicans there. And it's one of those deals where it's one of those events where I think it's a gift to both parties. I think Democrats they want to remind voters that Trump is who he is, and he's the top of the ticket. And a lot of this election cycle has been kind of a referendum on Joe Biden, and Democrats want to set up a choice between Biden and Trump. And so I think a Trump visit really helps Democrats remind the public who the Republican candidate is. And meanwhile, it helps Republicans rally their base.
And at least conveniently for Republican legislators, they can at least use the excuse that we're in session that day and we're not able to attend that Trump rally. So they're curious to see who ends up attending the Trump rally coming to Minnesota coming up on Friday the 17th. Well, you've been speaking with Patrick Coolican, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. Again, a great resource for Minnesota news and politics, and especially for following along what's happening during the final few days of the session. Make sure you go to minnesotareformer.com. Patrick, as always, thanks for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Twins, Yankees in town, correct? For a 3-game set. Oh, God, no, it's going to be insufferable on Thursday when I got Schechter on with me.
You'll actually get to talk, though. Well,
probably be the day game on Thursday. Right? Yeah. Well, there you go. Hopefully, hey, I said 20 games ago, if they go 15-5, they still not be in first place. They went 17-3, and they're still not in first place. But are they a full game out now because Cleveland won yesterday?
Yep. Twins did not play yesterday.
So we'll have to see. Game on. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. The biggest mystery right now is how much is the Minnesota GOP or Minnesota Republican donors giving to Trump to come in here for the Lincoln dinner, whatever it is, the dinner they're having on Friday night. How much money? My guess is the entire door is going to go to him. All the photo op money is going to go to him. And my guess is they're going to have to get one or two of those big conservative donors to scratch out a 7 or 8 figure check as well. That's what they had to do to get him here for that event. That there is no way on the planet Donald Trump's going to leave a dime here that he can't take with him. I've asked a few people. There are multiple people have said they don't have any idea. 1 or 2 people who I think do have an idea they've said no comment. And that leads me to believe that the Minnesota GOP, good luck. I mean, if this is going to cost you every dime you got in your coffers to get them here.
What money in their coffers?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have a lot in the first place. But, I mean, if you say to yourself, okay, we can have Donald Trump come and speak. And like I said, I have no idea what the fiscal arrangement is. I can tell you it's not out of the goodness of his freaking heart. If you've got a local donor who, and there's a few guys in town who are willing to drop, say, $5 million, $10 million, you desperately need that money to try to take the Minnesota House if you're going to try to even mount a campaign against Klobuchar, which I doubt you will. I don't know. Good luck with that. Speaking of Republicans, we've got a humdinger of an audio clip. This is the human catcher mitt himself, Glenn Gruenhagen. Yes, he was speaking on the Senate floor about, well, we'll just let this stand for itself here.
In science, I find a lot of censorship, lies, and deceit. You know, there's lots of scientific evidence that points to a creator or God. And I'll just give you 2. One is the law of cause and effect. For every effect, there's a greater cause. So you have a computer. Did somebody make the computer? If you'd never seen it before, did somebody make the computer?
What?
Or did wind, rain, time, and chance blow the computer into existence? Well, the logical conclusion is someone made the computer.
What?
Well, your eyeball is millions of times more complex than that computer, and therefore the law of cause and effect has never been contradicted. You have this building, somebody built it. You have the earth, somebody made it. You have the universe, somebody created it. That is a repeatable and observable scientific fact. And yet we censor that from our students.
Well, because it's not a scientific fact. That's a theological belief. And you do understand that a lot of other religions have their own. Somebody built the earth. I mean, that's going to be some overtime. I mean, seriously, where are you finding the contractors for that? I mean, that's your skilled labor at that point. I can't even begin to understand the concept of building. Someone built a galaxy. I mean, that's some extra hours. You're pulling in some overtime. I mean, some holiday pay, that sort of thing. It clearly is. Even he lost halfway through that thing. Even Gruenhagen was like, "What am I saying?" kind of mentality through the. Dude, I am a Christian, and by the way, funny story. You need to. I don't think your Bible, Glenn. I don't think your Bible has the Gospel of Matthew in it, where it's about feeding the hungry, taking care of the sick, welcoming in strangers from strange lands. I know it's a hoot. You should read it there. Those are Jesus's direct teachings Jesus, the man that makes you a Christian. You should probably read the Gospel of Matthew because all your Republican policies have nothing to do with it. But we got a guy here who can build a heck of a storm. The reason why, if you want your kid to learn the story of creationism, take your kid to church. We did. We took our kid to church. That's where they learn creationism. I don't expect a church to teach a science class in the same sense as I don't expect a science class to teach a theology class. Ta-da! That's how it works, Glenn. And a computer, wind, rain. So someone made a computer, and then your argument is that someone built an eye? Or it could be, I don't know, millions of years of evolution. It's nothing. Speaking of lost causes on the religious front in Minnesota, the 10 Commandments. Yes, those 10 Commandments. The freshest and mintiest 10 Commandments ever. The display that was painted inside the Itasca County Jail is no more, painted over with 2 coats. Wait a second here. This isn't Texas. This isn't Bowieville, Mississippi. This is Itasca? And you had the 10 Commandments painted on the wall? Okay, once again, you want church in your life, go to church. There's a few around. You can have your choice. Heck, most communities, even the small ones, you got 8 or 9 choices there. You can shop around. You do not have to force this on someone. The thing which blows my mind is you have to realize you're going to lose that lawsuit unless you have a display of every religion available in that jail. Apparently, someone must have informed them of that. The list of religious texts stood 2 stories high inside the jail's gym until early this month, part of a recently completed $75 million justice complex at Grand Rapids. Other inspirational and religious quotes painted inside the jail were also covered, said Brent Skiles, the Itasca County administrator. Ultimately, it just had to do with defending the situation and how many public dollars might be at risk here. You think, dummies? You're going to lose that case. He noted that Sheriff Joe Dasovich made the decision to repaint Dasovich was unavailable for comment on Monday. The oversized display was discovered during tours of the new Northeast Minnesota facility in the Madison, Wisconsin-based Freedom from Religious Foundation and received 20 complaints by the end of April, many contending the displays were unconstitutional, in a letter sent to the county asking to investigate and remove the religious writings. Last week, residents packed a tense county board meeting, many criticizing the commissioners for leaving the decision to the sheriff. One man called them cowards for playing a very small minority. Another compared the commandments to laws, saying the county might as well do away with speed limits if we're going to remove the commandments. You dim bulbs do realize the same people. I mean, these are without a doubt in my mind the same people who scream around going, "You're wasting my taxpayer dollars." Pa-ting! Yeah, you guys. Yosemite Sam, you guys like to sit around and complain about wasting your taxpayer dollars. You do realize the millions of dollars it would have cost for your county to defend that, which you would have lost, would have come from you. Oh, that's right. That money doesn't count. But Joe Biden wants to build a road in your district. You're wasting my taxpayer dollars. Now go throw my money away while you try to defend the 10 Commandments in the jail. Dear Lord, how dumb are you people? I mean, once again, you want to have religion, knock yourself out. Once again, nothing's stopping you. There's churches everywhere. I'm Christian. Go to a lovely Lutheran church. Love it. I enjoy it quite a bit. Here you are, and how many of you visited the jail anyway? I highly doubt you guys went in there. You just basically like the idea of forcing your religion on other people. And you were going to lose that case, Mr. and Mrs. Don't you waste my taxpayer dollars. You would have lost that case badly. Grand Rapids resident Deborah Salisbury pleaded with the board to keep the walls as they were, saying inmates would benefit from exposure to a religious guidance. Okay, let's put up some Muslim statements. Oh, wait a minute, not those religious guidance? Some don't even know the name of Jesus until they come in here. Really? In the United States of America? Okay. The Freedom from Religion Foundation argued the religious displays violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, in which says government must retain neutrality about religion. One quote painted on the cell block walls was attributed to former President Reagan, reads, "Within the covers of the Bible, the answers to all the problems men face." Now, that would be forcing religion on someone there. The foundation said Monday it was pleased the Constitution prevailed over the desire for Sauk County officials to create a coercive religious environment, which it was. It was jail. And like I said, these people who are out there saying, how did you do this? They loved it because it was basically forced religion. You want to see how far the Republican Party has fallen? Look at that. What do I mean we can't force our religion on these people? No, you can't. And that comes from the Constitution. And even that Supreme Court would not have allowed that. I mean, don't get me wrong, RV and 5-star, they would have basically voted along with it, but not even the rest of them would have gone with it. It would have been a 7-2. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Take a break, come back. We'll wrap up the show when we do return. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. Hey, one last story from the Smile File. Oh, that's right. You know where I'm going. A Blue Earth, Minnesota man pleaded guilty Tuesday to being at the front of the crowd with the other supporters of then-President Trump during the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol more than 3 years ago. Paul Orda Jr., 35, entered his plea in U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia to civil disorder and aiding and abetting. A criminal complaint filed in November laden with photographs showed Orda tossing aside police barricades, rushing towards a line of officers, and going into restricted areas of the Capitol as the House of Representatives was certifying Joe Biden's election victory over Trump. The plea agreement noted the federal sentencing guidelines call for Orda to receive a prison term ranging from 8 to 14 months. However, federal judges have full discretion when sentencing defendants and are not bound by guideline circulation. I think you should put him in for a few months at least. Orda also agreed with the prosecution to make $2,000 in restitution to the architect of the U.S. Capitol for his share of the nearly $3 million in damage to the building and its grounds during the mayhem. Sentencing is scheduled for October 7th. In the meantime, Orda remains free on personal recognizance bail. According to the U.S. Justice Department database, Orda is the 14th Minnesota charged with the January 6th insurrection. Arrest every stinking one of those traitors to the country. You tried to overthrow a legitimate election and install the loser as the president. That would have been the end of democracy. You do that once, you're never going to be able to walk that back. So, no, you're traitors. You deserve everything you get. And if you're too stupid to realize that the guy who basically was bilking, I mean, just look at the trial today. Listen to how the Machiavellian, puppet master was controlling everything behind the scenes. It was about power and control. And you dupes were stupid enough to go along with it. Orda saw himself in a photo from the insurrection that the FBI posted online, according to the complaint, and went to the agency's Minneapolis field offices on January 25th to acknowledge his participation. He told FBI agents, "I wanted to do the right thing." The complaint noted while he admitted going past the first barrier, he denied breaching the second barrier or entering the Capitol itself. The complaint said in entering his plea, Orda admitted the following account. He arrived at Washington, D.C. suburb on January 5th aboard a privately owned school bus sporting Trump 2020 graffiti that drew the attention of a concerned citizen who notified police. Officers pulled over the bus to determine its North Carolina registration had expired. Orda and 3 others on the bus were checked for weapons and released. Soon afterwards, the bus was stopped in Washington near the Capitol Mall by police who searched the vehicle, found 2 guns and ammunition. Oh, Orda knew that the guns were on the bus. Oh. Video of the police body cameras and other sources show Orda throwing a security barricade aside and beckoning the remaining crowd beyond the perimeter to move forward. The charges read, it was about then that the crowd began moving into the Capitol grounds, overwhelming the officers, sending them into retreat. They pushed ahead towards the Capitol, began pulling away medical rakes and stuff. And needless to say, you get the point. he basically stormed the Capitol. And they brought guns. Remember they said, nobody brought guns. It was peaceful. Yeah, they brought guns. A lot of them got guns. A ton of them had guns out there. Smile File. Got to catch them all. Native Roots Radio, that's coming up next. Have a good one. We are back on a Wednesday. Till then, see ya.